Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. We just had an opportunity to meet with the President about the crisis we have with regard to protecting the American people, with the decision by the leaders in the House not to take up and pass the bipartisan Protect America Act that secured 68 votes in the Senate. But clearly the problem here is the majority of the Democrats in the House would rather see companies in court than they would terrorists in jail. What drives this issue, it strikes us, is the allegiance that the majority of the Democrats have with the plaintiffs' bar, the trial lawyers, and their opportunity to sue. Why is that significant? The companies have a couple of scores of lawsuits filed against them as a result of their answering the call of our government to step forward in the wake of 9/11 to help protect America. That's not fair to them, and more important than that, leaving aside their interests, which might put them out of business, which certainly wouldn't serve our purpose, because then we wouldn't be able to monitor anybody. We have a serious problem here with being able to continue to protect the homeland. We need this capability in order to prevent terrorist attacks. So just summing it up, we think it's a lot more important to protect the country than it is to protect the trial bar.
The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or the modern-day version called the Protect America Act, expires tomorrow. And when it expires tomorrow, our intelligence officials will not have all the tools they need to help protect the American people. Secondly, this issue of the carriers that work with our government are increasingly concerned about their liability and increasingly concerned about whether they're going to continue to work with our intelligence officials. This is a very serious problem that will affect the security of the American people. A bipartisan bill passed the Senate with 68 votes. There's a bipartisan majority in the House of Representatives that are willing to vote for this bill. But yesterday, the Democrat leaders of the House blocked the consideration of this Senate bill, even though a majority of the House, a bipartisan majority of the House, was willing to vote for it. Now we're on a 12-day recess, and during that time, our intelligence officials will not have all of the tools they need to protect the American people. This is a grave problem, and the Democrat leaders ought to be held accountable for their inaction.
Unlike some of the other intelligence gathering that's done by the United States, this particular intelligence must have the cooperation of the private sector. It's not done by United States government agents or agencies. It's done by the folks that serve us when we pick up the telephone and want to make a telephone call. And without their voluntary cooperation, this important intelligence gathering won't occur. And it cannot occur if they get hauled into court and have to answer these lawsuits that preclude them from then helping the United States government in its operations. That's why this new legislation must pass. And as has been noted, it passed overwhelmingly in the Senate in a bipartisan way, but was blocked by the Democratic leaders in the House of Representatives. Now Congress is set to go on a 12-day recess, leaving the country vulnerable. The moment that the congressional leaders get back in Washington, the Senate legislation must be passed by the House of Representatives for the protection of the American people.
21 Democrats in the House wrote the Speaker of the House and said, pass the Senate bill. Those 21 Democrats and other Democrats with all of the Republicans would have easily passed the Senate bill this week, extending the bill that we put into effect 6 months ago so that we could resolve all of these extraneous issues. Just simply doesn't solve the problem. Every day, the communications companies, for legitimate reasons, are increasingly reluctant to do what they have been doing. Surely this isn't the slow bleed strategy for intelligence. to where we just simply let our intelligence get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer every day until it's gone, and we don't have the advantage of what we've been using to protect the American people. To not let the only bill that could have passed the House this week, the Senate bill, the bipartisan Senate bill with bipartisan House support, come to the floor was a huge failure in leadership, and to go home for 12 days with that being your last decision in Washington is even a bigger failure.
Any questions?
Is it true that the authorization, if a new terrorist group were identified today, for instance, aren't you authorized to follow them under the current bill for a year?
I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so.
No, the answer to that is no. If somebody is currently being followed pursuant to the procedures authorized by the law that expires tomorrow, that activity can continue, but the case you present would not have the authority to proceed. And having to get a warrant, as has been explained by the officials involved in this, had become such a long, drawn-out process under the procedures that previously existed that the intelligence community was missing about 2/3 of the available intelligence collection because of the backlogs in getting those warrants.
The Democrat leaders in the House, it's their responsibility. They walked away from their responsibility, and now we're on a recess. And so for the next 12 days, the American intelligence officials are not going to have all the tools they need in order to protect the American people.
We would hope those 21 Democrats that were vigorous to try to get this done last week continue to be vigorous with their leadership over the break, and we would hope their number, their visible public number, would increase between now and the day we come back, and where their leaders eventually have to say, this is now too big a management problem for us, we're going to have to do the right thing.
When the Protect America Act was put into law in July, it had a 6-month extension. That extension expired on February the 1st. Congress and the White House agreed to a 14-day delay extension in order to come to an agreement and to resolve those differences. Any more delays are a tactic on the part of the Democrats to never really put this law into effect. And the key reason why we can't go through another extension is that the carriers who are voluntarily participating in this program are increasingly reluctant to work with our intelligence officials. This problem has to be solved because without their assistance in this program, it will not be successful, and our intelligence officials will not have the tools they need to protect the American people.
Let me just,
I think that information is clear to everyone on the Hill, but the reluctance of the carriers to participate in this program is the most critical and underlying problem that will put Americans at risk.
Let's try one more time. The companies have been waiting for 6 months for retroactive liability. They're under pressure from their directors, pressure from their shareholders. Are you jeopardizing the entire existence of the company by continuing to do this? So, as everybody has pointed out, they are voluntarily responding to the requests of our government to help, but they can't, based on their fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, squander the whole company over this. So an extension is not adequate. We need to fix the problem. And the Senate-passed bill fixes the problem. As everybody has said, there's a bipartisan majority in the House to take up and pass the Senate bill. Extending current law doesn't get the job done.
All right, let's go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.